Hello everyone, this is Professor Lab06. Welcome to this video lesson. We're going to be talking about Lab 6, which is to introduce real numbers and scope. And the way that we're going to talk about that is to create this application, which is a very simple calculator where the user enters a number in this text box, another number in this text box, and then clicks on the appropriate operator and then gets the result and displays the result actually in this label down here. So this is kind of like a before and after. The user clicked plus in this case, so we're adding numbers and then displaying them on this label. Sometimes people refer to this as operand, and then the result. So this is an operand, this is an operand. These are operators, and then the result is going to be down here in the label. And then we've got various user requirements and software requirements. So we'll talk about that. Let's go ahead and start this program. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do in Visual Studio is to create a new project. This is going to be a visual C# project. So I'll select Windows Forms Application, and over here in the name, I'll say this is C# Lab 6. Click OK. All right, let me open up the toolbox, and let me go back over here to preview. It looks like I'm going to need buttons. Here's a label, and these are text boxes. So I'll drag and drop a button, a label, and a text box. Let me go ahead and minimize the toolbox. I don't need that anymore. It looks like the text box in the top is pretty big. I mean, the font is pretty large, I should say. And also the text is centered. So let me work with the text box first, and I'll take these two guys and move them over here. Let's take that text box, move it into the upper left-hand corner, and open up the Properties panel. I'm going to select a font size, so I click on this plus symbol to expand font, and over here where it says size, I'm going to type in the number 24. Now let me just type in a number over here just to give you an idea what this looks like 1.23 over here. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to have to open this up a little bit. I don't know how much yet. I definitely need to move that text so that it's in the center. So we'll use the text align property, and instead of left, we'll make that center. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now again, I don't know how wide this is going to be because that depends on my buttons. So why don't I do this? Let me just design these 4 buttons, and then I'll know how wide to make that text box. So let me go ahead and take that button, move it in the upper left-hand corner underneath the text box. And for the text, we'll type in the plus symbol. Now that's really, really small. I can barely see that. Let's see what happens if I go to font, change the size to 24 points, enter. I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger so I can see it. Oh, that looks good. Let's see, is it similar to this? I think this is actually bigger. So maybe I should make it 36. Again, it doesn't matter what size. You can enter whatever the point size is that you want. I'm just trying to be as similar as possible to the requirements. Okay, that's a little bit too big, so let's see if I can reduce that box. You know what, I sure would like to get the width and the height exactly right. And so the way that you can do that is you can scroll down over here to size. And so this is going to be the size in points. Let's see what it looks like for a 50 by 50. So for the width, I'll type in 50. For the height, I'll type in 50, enter. A little bit too small. How about 60? 60 for the height and for the width. I think that looks good. 60 for the height and for the width. All right, this is already text align middle center, so that's perfect. I think I'll just use that for the rest of the buttons as well. All right, let me make this form a little bit bigger to give me some space. I'll take this button, Control-C, copy, Control-V, paste. Put that over here. Control-V, paste. On the keyboard, Control-V, paste. There we go. So those are my 4 buttons. Now I know how to resize my text box. I can resize it all the way to the right-hand side of this button. Now, in accordance to the requirements, plus, minus, multiplication, division. Okay, so let me go ahead and change these symbols here. So we'll say text property will be just a hyphen. That'll be the minus property. Oh gosh, I double-clicked on this. Well, you know what? It's a good thing that I did because I can show you the mistake that I made here. This was a mistake. I didn't mean to double-click on this yet because I just meant to change the text property of this guy to an X, but I sinned. I double clicked because I'm talking too fast and moving too fast. And so sometimes this happens. I didn't name this yet. It has a name, button 3, but that's going to be like BTN multiplication. So anyway, I need to delete this. But if I do that, there's going to be ramifications. Let me show you how to deal with that. Okay, so I select that function. I don't need that. When I go back to design, it's going to say, hey, you can't do that. There's an error. Well, the error is that I deleted the code that refers to that particular button. So what I got to do is I got to click over here where it says instances of this error. I'll click over here, and here's the problem. It's saying you are supposed to go to btn_click, but there is no btn_click. I just deleted it. So I'll just get rid of that line right there. I don't need that line. In fact, look at this. It says button 3 text, button 3 this, button 3. All that has to go away. There is no button 3. I have to get rid of all that. So what I'm going to do, get rid of this here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say from button 3 all the way down. Let me just scroll down, hold down Shift, select this guy, delete, and then I can go back over here to design, and here's that button. All right, so that's a no-no. I should have known better. Let me make this the same size as this. So first of all, make sure it's the same width, and I'll make sure it's the same height, and then I can move that back into position, and then I can do what I was supposed to do, which was to carefully type in the letter X. Okay, now I had to get rid of that font property, so the font property is 36 points for the other buttons, so we'll select this guy, and the size will be 36. Enter. Okay, there we go. And then finally, this guy is supposed to be division, but most people, they use the slash. Let me go over here, go to the text property and use the slash. I mean, that's a division operator. In mathematics, we use the slash. When we're typing in programs that divide, we have to use this symbol. But what I would like to use is this divide symbol. Well, how do I do that? Well, first of all, let me open up a browser here in Windows. And so that's going to be Microsoft Edge. And let's do a search specifically for the ASCII character for the division, ASCII division. ASCII is just an abbreviation for American Standards Committee Information Interchange. It's basically just going to give you a text representation of that division symbol. So let's see here. It looks like I've got this hyperlink over here. There it is. Let me just select that. So let me select that like this. Control C, copy. Let me go back over here to Visual Studio, the text property. Control V as in Victor. Enter. Nice. Now we've got that division symbol. Okay, I'll take this guy, Control C, Control V as in Victor, which is copy and paste, and I'll put it underneath over here. Let me go back over here to the preview. It looks like I have a line, and then I have a label. Well, let's take care of the label first, then we'll take care of the line. All right, so first of all, for the label, it's supposed to be able to be the same size as this text box. So in order for me to resize a label, I need to check auto size and change that from true to false. So now I am able to resize this thing. But I want this to be the same size as the text box. So remember, what I'm going to do is source destination. I'll select the source, hold down Shift, I'll select the destination. Now I can make it with these guys that pop up over here. I can make it so it's the same size. So I click on this. Now this is the same size as this. Carefully unselect, reselect. Let's place a border around this thing. So if I go over here to border style, I can select Fix 3D. Okay, now it's got a border. Let's move this into position. Now remember, there's going to be a line over here that divides, so I have a little bit of space over here. Now that font location and also the font size is incorrect. So let's change the font size to 36 because that's what we typed in for the text boxes. I think that's, oh, sorry, I typed in 24. All right, so over here, type in 24. There we go. That position is not correct, so I need to go to text align. Currently, it's in the top left. I'm going to make it so it's middle center. So I'll select this guy, click this button, middle center, and that has the appropriate effect on this button, or on this label rather. All right, let me get rid of the text. So I'll just simply select this, and I'll press delete on my Mac or backspace on your Windows PC. We're going to get rid of this text as well. And we're also going to get rid of this text as well because it's supposed to be blank initially. All right. The next thing we need to do is to create this horizontal line. Now you can't create a horizontal line per se on Visual Studio. You got to basically create a label and fill it with black and then resize it. So I'll just take this label over here. Let me copy and paste it. So here it is. And I'm going to make the back color black. So over here we have back color. Click the drop down. I'm going to go to Custom, and then you'll see all the various paint chips, and I'll just simply select black. So now you can see that this is black. By the way, I need to take the border away because I don't want this thing to have a border, so I'll just select none for the border style. All right, here's the problem. When I try to minimize this, it only lets me minimize it so much in terms of its height, right there. So I need to make it smaller than that. But before I do that, let me just move this into position like that. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard. I'm hitting the down arrow key right now and the up arrow key to kind of position it. That looks pretty good. All right, so Visual Studio doesn't allow you to make this thing any smaller. So what we have to do is go over here to the properties, expand the size property. Currently you see the height is 10. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that 2 points. So when I enter 2 points, now you can see the effect. All right, so let me just go ahead and select this carefully. So click over here, select it. I'll use the down arrow, up arrow. That looks pretty good right there. So that's how you create vertical and horizontal lines. Vertical and horizontal lines are nothing more than labels with the background of black. Okay, finished with that. Looks like I need to minimize the form, get rid of the minimize and the maximize box. So let's go ahead and take this guy, reduce it to something like that. Then they get rid of the maximize box and the minimize box. Okay. Now instead of form 1, what is this supposed to say? My calculator. So I'll go to the text property, my calculator. There we go. And let me save my work. Okay. So we're finished with the graphical user interface. Now let's go ahead and create names for the various buttons and the text boxes and this bottom label. So in accordance with the requirements, what does that say? I have to create txt operand 1, txt operand 2. Now, by the way, the word operand just simply means the numbers that the user types in into a calculator. Operators are these guys right here. So this is the addition operator, the subtraction operator, so forth and so on. Some people refer to this as the mantissa, where it's going to be displaying the result, but operand just simply means the numbers that are being entered by the user. Okay, so it looks like txt operand 1, txt operand 2. So I'll select this guy over here. txt operand 1, enter. I'll go over here. txt operand 2, press enter. All right, that takes care of the text boxes. I have btn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, so let's take care of those buttons. btn addition. Select over here. btn subtraction. btn multiplication. btn division. Enter. All right, last but not least, the result, the LBL result label. So this is the label right here. We're going to give that a name of LBL result. Let me save my work. All right. So let's see here. I think we're done with the graphical user interface portion and also the naming portion. So what we can do now is go into each of the different buttons, the code for the various buttons, and then either add the numbers, subtract them, so forth and so on. All right, so let me go ahead and double click on addition. So double click, and that takes me into the addition subroutine. Let me go ahead and minimize this because I don't need properties. So this function is going to activate when this event occurs. What event? Namely, when I click the addition button. Okay, so what do I want to do in this section? Well, first of all, I can use the comments that I've typed in previous programs, which is declarations, get user input, calculation or calculations, and then finally output. All right, well, what do I need to do? I need to get information from the user, namely the number that was typed here and also the number that was typed here. You'll recall that this is dealing with real numbers. What are real numbers? Real numbers are numbers that have a decimal point. Whole numbers are numbers that do not have a decimal point. And a real number can be a negative number, like this could have been negative 3.12, 0.0, 4.55, right? So negative, positive numbers, 0.0, those are considered real numbers. Now, how do we deal with real numbers? Well, we call those, let me go back over here to code area, we call those either floats, and if I need something bigger than a float, then we call those doubles. Now, you're thinking, what in the world does that mean? So let me go back over here. Oops, sorry. Let me go over here to this browser, and I'll do this. I'll say C# data types. Enter. And let's see here. C# data types. C# data types. Now let's click on this guy over here, and let me scroll down over here. So it looks like we have integers. It looks like an integer is a number that is between plus and minus 2.147 billion. Okay. Let me see here. What else do I have here? Does it say double, or does it say float? I don't see anything that says float. Oh, maybe this wasn't a good representation. Let me click this. Oh, that one's with. Oh, it says Java versus C# versus Java. Let's see if it gives us some data types over here. Built-in data types. Okay, so here's integer. Yep, that's what a 32-bit integer looks like. Let's see here, float. So this is a number from negative 3.4 times 10 to the 38th power to positive 3.4 times 10 to the 38th power. Notice that this guy over here, a double, is exactly double the size of a float. So this goes from minus 1.79 times 10 to the 308th. Well, actually, that's more than double, right? This is a pretty huge number. It's a 64-bit real number. All right, so if you want to use float, if you want to use double, it's up to you. That's fine. So what I'll do is I'll just use double, just simply because I'm used to using doubles all the time with some of the data that I work with, but you could have typed in float, that's fine. Let's go back to the requirements, and let's see here. We're supposed to create two real numbers that are num1 and num2. Okay, so we'll say num1 double num2. So these real numbers are going to hold decimal points. Now, I'm going to ignore this part where it says modular variables because I want to deliberately make a mistake and then show you why I specifically said modular, or this means global variables. You go back over here and continue. All right, well, I need to get the user inputs. I need to get the numbers that were entered by the user in this text box and also in this text box. So that'll be the get user input section. So we'll say num1 convert dot to double. Nice. What am I going to convert to a double? Well, this text box dot text. Same thing with num2. We are going to convert dot to double whatever is inside of the other text box, which is this guy, txt operand 2 dot text. Okay, so I've obtained the user input and num1 and num2, and now I need to add those two because the user clicked addition, and then I'm going to place the calculation into here. So I think what I'll do is I'll create another variable. Oops, sorry. I'm going to put that semicolon back over here. Press enter, and I'm going to create another double called sum. So over here in the calculations section, sum is going to be, why is it going over here? There we go. Sum is going to be the addition of num1 plus num2. Okay. Now, what is the output going to be? Well, I'm going to output the result into this label. Oh, what is the name of that label? You don't have to remember. All you have to remember or recall is that LBL is the Hungarian notation for all labels. And we already created an LBL result, so I'll double click that. Dot text. All right, this is a number. We are about to put a number into a text property or a string. We can't do that. So we'll use convert dot to string, open parentheses. It's the sum that I want to convert. And then I'll put a semicolon over here. Okay, so let me read this. Let me translate this from English, C# into English. Obtain the sum, the number sum. convert that into a text, or we call that into a string, and place that or assign that into the text property of this label. Okay, let's run the program and see what happens. So let me start. And I'll type in 1.11 tab. Oh, I got to take care of that. I don't want these tabs to go to the button. I just want to go straight to that text box, 2.22. And then I'll click the addition symbol. Okay, so this plus this equals this. Okay, that's good. First of all, did you notice that when I hit tab, it's going to all these different buttons? I just want to go from this text box to this text box when I press tab. So let me save this and let me digress slightly and take care of that tab issue. I'm going to go back over here to the design tab, and I want this to be a tab stop. I want this to be a tab stop, but I don't want any of these buttons to be a tab stop. Labels, they are not tab stops anyway. Okay, so what I'll do is, first of all, let me just select that button, go over here to the Properties panel, tack that down. And do I want this to have a tab stop? No, so it's currently true, so double click false. Same thing over here, tab stop false. Over here, tab stop false. Over here, tab stop false. Okay, this is the first thing that should be blinking for the user to type in data. So it says tab stop true, that's good, but its tab index, I want that to be 0. So 0 is the first item. This is going to be the second item. It currently has a tab index of 7. I'm going to change that to 1. Now let's see what happens when I run the program. So currently the cursor is blinking in that first text box. Excellent. Let me hit tab. It goes to the second text box. Let me hit tab. It goes back to the first text box. Excellent. All right, let me stop my program. I don't need this panel, and I'm going to minimize that. Save. Good. All right. So this function works, or this procedure works, when the user clicks the addition button. Now let's do the same thing for subtraction. Okay, so I'm going to double click, and that's going to take me into this procedure over here. Now notice that really this subtraction is really the same thing as all of this, except that I'm going to change that to the word difference. I'm going to change this into subtraction. That'll be the word difference, and then that'll be the word difference, and then we apply this. Okay, so it looks like my declarations are being duplicated, with exception, of course, to the I should say these two are being duplicated in subtraction, and then they'll be repeated again in multiplication, repeated again in division when we get to those particular events. Maybe what I can do with these is create global variables, and that's what this thing over here is referring to. Modular variables, global variables. What that means is something that everyone has access to. The way you could think about it is as this. When you look up on your ceiling, and if I took a crayon and wrote a message over there that said hello, that's different than if I paid some skywriters and airplanes and wrote the word hello on a sky, right, with that powder that they shoot out the back of their planes. So the message hello that you see on your ceiling, you could think of that as local. The message that you see in the sky where everyone can see it, you can think of that as global, or sometimes programmers refer to that as modular. All right, so what we want is we want to make it so that this guy sees num1 and num2. This guy sees num1 and num2. Same thing when I double click on multiplication and also division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, or I'm going to remove these guys over here. So let me just say Control X for cut, and I'm going to make these global. So notice I got a bunch of red squiggly because it doesn't know what num1 and num2 is. All right, so I'll just simply go over here, and underneath form or above form, it doesn't matter. Let me just press enter a couple times, and I'll say global, sometimes referred to as modular declaration. Declaration. Enter, and now let me paste. I didn't type in anything new. It's the same typing, double num1, double num2, but the location of this outside of any procedure makes these things global. So we've referred to that as scope. This is a local variable. This variable sum is local to BTN addition. That means that BTN subtraction can't see someone else's local variable. Okay, pretend, okay, so I'm in my house, right? And I have all kinds of items in my house. You don't see the items in my house. But then if I put items outside my house, now they're global, and so everyone can see them. Okay, so how about this? Let's pretend that I have my kitchen trash can. That kitchen trash can is local to my house. When I take that kitchen trash can and I put it out in the front yard for the garbage collectors to pick it up, now it becomes global. Right? So global variables you can think of as this: variables that are seen by everyone, kind of like the skywriting. Local variables are inside of a given procedure. That means that only the items in that particular procedure can see these local variables. So these are global, these are local. By making these two global, now everyone can see them. So what I'll do is I'll just simply take this guy over here from declarations all the way to output. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that into subtraction, and I've got some modifications to make. First of all, when I'm subtracting things, they don't result in a sum, they result in a difference. So we'll say difference. All right, num1 and num2 are obtained by the text boxes, that's fine. For the calculation, we need to subtract those numbers. So we'll say difference, and then instead of adding them, we got to change that to subtraction. Finally, the result is going to be the difference, so I'll change this sum to difference because I need to take the difference and send it out to the text property of that label. Let me save my work, run my program, and let's see what happens. All right, so I have 2.22 tab 1.11. If I hit plus, it adds them up. If I hit subtraction, it will subtract this minus this is equal to this. Excellent. Okay, now let's work with multiplication. So I'll go over here to the design panel, double click on this multiplication button, and of course it takes me to its click procedure. All I have to do is just simply copy this and paste it and make some modifications because the code really is the same. So I'll select this, copy, go over here, paste. Now for multiplication, we're going to determine what the product is. We obtain the two numbers, that's fine. The calculation is to determine what the product is. So that means over here, I've got to change that to multiplication, which is the asterisk. All right, we are going to take that product and display it on the label. So I put that over here. Whatever the product is, whatever that number is, put it into the text property of the label. Save my work. Let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens. All right, so I'll say 3.33 tab 1.11. If I add them together, yep, that's correct. If I subtract them, yep. And if I multiply them, this is what I get. Okay, so everything is looking good so far. The last item to work with is division. So let me go over here to the design panel, double click on the division button, and here we go. I think I can just hit paste. Oh, no, I copied that. So I got to copy this guy over here. Control C, copy, paste. All right, now we are not determining what the product is when we click the division button. We are determining the quotient. We are going to get the two numbers. That quotient is going to be replacing this guy over here, and instead of multiplication, we put the /, which means divide this number divided by this number, and then that'll give us the quotient. Now the next thing to do is to replace that product with quotient, because that's what we're going to be sending out to the text property of our label. Save my work, run the program. All right, so let me enter 5 and 2. Now you're gonna say, hey, those are whole numbers. That's okay. A real number can be demoted to a whole number, or a whole number, I should say, can be promoted to a real number. So I could have done this. I could have said 5.0 divided by 2.0. And that's exactly what the compiler is going to do, because we're converting these into floats, or to doubles, I should say. Where is that? Let me go back to the global area. Here it is. All right, I take that number, I put it into num1. Well, that's going to treat it as a double, which it'll convert this 5, which is a whole number, to this, which is a real number or a double. So it doesn't matter. I can enter this or I could enter this. All right, I hit plus, 7. Subtraction, good. Multiplication, yes. Division should be 2.5, and it is. Nicely done. Okay, so what this program has shown you is, first of all, let me see here, what were we supposed to be talking about? We're supposed to be talking about real numbers, and so that's what a double is. Could I have typed in the word float here? Yeah, that's another real number. It's just a smaller real number, that's all. I'm so used to typing double that that's what I use. But if I really wanted to be memory conscious, then I really would have to type in float, because that's a smaller floating point number. It's like you going to 7-Eleven and saying, this is a 32 ounce. Oh, and all I need is the 16 ounce. That's what you could do. You could make it a smaller size type of cup or a smaller size variable. So I'll just leave that as double. All right, so that's what you've learned about here. You've also learned that the location of those declarations makes them either global or local. Sum is local to addition. Num1 and num2 are global, which means that btn addition can see this, btn subtraction can see these two, btn multiplication can see those two, and also btn division can see these two, because these are global. These guys can see them. This is like skywriting on the wall. Yeah, we see you and we can use you. Now, over here for subtraction, I've got this variable called difference. It is inside of subtraction, so that means that addition can't use difference. It can't even see it. Neither can multiplication or division. Why? Because this variable is local. It belongs inside of subtraction. Now if I did this, let me cut this and let me paste it over here. Okay, now everyone, addition, multiplication, division, everyone can see difference because that would be global. So we call this scope. So let me undo and restore order to the universe. Here we go. Let me collapse all these functions. And that is it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.